It's time for our Agile, Not So Agile episode of the Daily Stand Up Podcast. And today I wanted to talk about your biggest fear. So, a lot of people talk to me about fear and about what they feel like they need to, the demon in their closet that they need to overcome, right? And they ask me, what are some of the best advice pieces that I could give them on how to overcome your biggest fear? How can you challenge it? How can you get past it? So, I heard a story once and I was able to look it up and I found it on the internet. And it's a story. It's a story that could be sensitive to some people. So if you're easily impacted or triggered by domestic violence and other things, I might encourage you to bow out now and try again next week. But this is a very touching story. It's a sensitive story, but I think it's going to give you some insight. So this is a story. Now, I will say, although it could be my story, it's not. This is a story that I read. So here we go. When I was 8 or 9 years old, I would hide under my bed, hearing my parents scream at each other. Dad would come home late, sometimes drunk, and my mom began berating him about all the things he wasn't doing and how big of a failure he was as a husband and a father. He responded by repeatedly yelling at her to shut up or else, and his threats only sharpened her tongue and made her more upset when suddenly I heard a horrific crash and then screams from my mom. I would learn only later that the coffee table had just been thrown across the living room, but at the time, I just trembled at the thought of what it could have meant. Will there be blood? Is he hitting her? Are they trying to kill each other? What's happening? So domestic violence in any household will impact you for many, many years, sometimes even decades later. And the suppressed anxiety that you face would surface in the form of panic attacks and other things that are happening. So first it happened in a meeting of the psychology. The first time it happened in a meeting of a psychology department, but then it happened in a restaurant, and then again and again. And while I was retreating more and more from my life in an effort to avoid this horrific feeling, it took 3 years to struggle before I discovered a different way of dealing with my anxiety and my stress. I found a way to understand this change and to produce in the lives of others. For the next decade, I occasionally had anxiety attacks, but except for one brief moment or a minute-long breach of trust in myself, I never again threw that switch that turns my anxiety into a panic attack. I can honestly say I no longer suffer from any kind of panic attack, provided I can refine what that means. So this is the steps or the things that you could do. And it's just 3 questions to ask yourself to help you overcome that fear. So now, based on that story, here are the three questions. Question number 1, why do I even care? When facing your fear is something uncomfortable, facing your fear is never something comfortable is what I meant to say, sorry. Why do you want to bother in the first place? Is it to get rid of it? Is it to look deeper? Is it to get past it? Is there something on the other side that makes it worth it? I don't know. So, I mean, if you can figure out what your goal is, what you're trying to differentiate, and why you need to do this, then it makes sense. I meet people all the time who have just some silly fears and some founded fears. But even the silly fears are founded in their mind, so we need to treat each one with dignity and respect and make sure that we're addressing or helping them address whatever it is that's going on in their mind. And I think that has to do with aligning goals and values. So what is the feeling of fear preventing you or getting in the way of? What would you have done differently if that fear didn't show up? Are there certain steps you could take or do things different way more often? Are there things you need to stop doing? Right? These are all questions you can ask yourself to help you get past that piece. If it wasn't for your fear, what goals would you try to achieve? Or if it wasn't for your fear, what value-based actions would you be engaged in today? Right? And then the second big question is, what is your fear like? Many people have a long-distance relationship with uncomfortable feelings, right? That means the moment these feelings show up on the horizon, they start freaking out and they retreat. So they don't have to feel the full brunt of what's happening, right? And this sounds positive because you're avoiding feeling uncomfortable, but it can lead to a lot of really, really bad side effects if you don't address whatever the concern is. And I've seen this one firsthand a bunch of times. I think that people feel better when they say, oh, I can do this and I feel better. But it doesn't put you in a proper position to address whatever is actually happening. Just throwing it out there, right? So there's more to the puzzle than what meets the eye, so to speak. So you need to understand what the fear is and what is your fear like, right? Because if you can figure that out, that's going to help you really get to the point where you can start solutioning your dilemma. And then number 3, what are you willing to feel in order to get there? Now, this one confuses a lot of people because I tell people, if you're trying to overcome something, you're going to have some hard feelings first that are going to steer you in a different direction you might expect to help you overcome whatever's bothering you. And it's in all likelihood not going to be super comfortable. It can mean, a number of things, but I want it to be that there's so many other things that we can feel that are positive. But if feeling a deeper feeling for just a few short moments is going to help us get past one of our main anxieties, I would argue that it's definitely worth it, right? So it's one of those things where we have to better understand where we are, who we are. And it's not necessarily that we want to learn this or that we want this to be presented in a painful way, but I think that you need to put in the effort and say, I'm willing to feel a little discomfort in order to get past that hump. And I think that's when you really can get things to the point where you're asking yourself the deeper questions, the bigger questions. What is a simple way for you to practice how you feel your fear and what you do about it? Or how long are you willing to allow yourself to watch and notice the things that you fear? And what steps you should take once you've found those out, right? I mean, these are just things that you need to ask yourself. And I think that if you focus on those bigger questions and you build around, why do you even care? What is your fear like and how is it different than mine? And then finally, what are we waiting to feel? I think that we all kind of bonded around those things, that the world will be a better place because, well, your fear of simple things are missing, but it just means that we'll have that much more ability going forward to ask the right questions and do the things we need to do in order for fear to be a thing of the past. So that's going to do it. We're going to keep it short and sweet. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Do take care.